Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be giving an overview of Lula Build. So before we get started, just a brief introduction to what is Lula Build. So Lula Build is a web-based platform that has been designed to develop cost estimates for construction projects. Okay, and Lula Build provides the tooling to use these cost estimates during the full life cycle of a project. So it can be used during the planning phase to develop tenders or to price tenders, and it can also be used during the execution phase of a project for both forecasting and project tracking and project control purposes. All right, so as mentioned, Lulabuild is a web-based platform, so you can access it via your browser by just going to lulabuild.com and then clicking on the login button to access the system. Right, so I'm just going to fill in my login details, and this will then launch the platform for us. Okay, so in Lulabuild, all of your projects are organized into so-called workspaces. So under the My Project tab, you will see all of your own personal workspaces, and you can have private workspaces or public workspaces. In public workspaces, all of your projects are publicly available to all Lulabuild users. And if you don't want them to be publicly available, you can upgrade your workspaces to a private workspace where only you and whoever's been invited to that workspace can access it. So as a company, you'll have one workspace for the full company, and you'll invite all of the users inside of your company to this workspace, and you can assign them to seats, and everyone will be able to access projects in your company workspace. And you can set access control and specify who can access what, who's allowed to edit which projects, and so forth. Okay, so in workspaces, projects can be organized into folders. And I've got a small demo project that I've prepared for this demonstration, and it's just a small building that I've priced. Okay, so if you double click on that small building, it's going to launch the project, and we're now in the project editing view. If you want to go back to the workspace view, you can either click the back to workspace button, or you can click the home button at the top, which takes you back to your home screen. All right, so just a quick note on the layout. You'll notice that we've got these two menu bars on the left-hand side of the screen. They can both expand and collapse if you want more space in the screen. And they contain all of the main modules in the system that you can launch. So you've got your bill of quantities, your resources, clusters, etc., etc. All right. So typically in Lulabuild, we'll start from a bill of quantities. So I'm going to open up my bill of quantities module. I'm just going to collapse the navigation bar, and here I've got a fully priced bill of quantities already loaded into the system. But in Lulabuild, you can import existing bills of quantities directly from Excel. So if you've got an Excel bill or a CSV bill, you can pull it in directly into the system, or you can manually create a bill of quantities by using the buttons at the bottom, where you can add sections and add items and so forth. All right, but I've already pulled in a bill of quantities from Excel, and as you can see, it's a small little building with your typical sections. We've got earthworks, masonry, plumbing, carpentry, tiling, etc., with all of the sub-items underneath each of these sections. All right, so you'll note that each of these bill items have already got a net rate, but in Lulabuild, net rates aren't just plug rates. There's a whole worksheet sitting behind each net rate that specifies the full rate buildup. Lulabuild's a so-called estimating system that works from first principles. So you'll build up all of these rates using resources and everything that you'll actually be using on site. Okay, so I've left one bill item unpriced, the plastering of the interior walls, that we can now use as an example to walk through. All right, so I'm just going to open that item up. And here we've got the plastering item, and it's got a worksheet associated with it, and that worksheet currently is empty. All right, so as mentioned, we're going to price this item from first principles. So we're going to develop the rate in terms of all of the resources required to actually do the plastering on site. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to have to create some resources that will be used for this item. So I'm going to switch back to my resources module. Now, resources are essentially anything that you can spend money on. So this can be different types of materials, it can be labor, it can be plant items, and it's all user defined. So you can create your own database of resources for what you anticipate will be used on site. So you can see that for this project, I've created a small little resource list of everything that I'm going to need. So this includes diesel, which is fuel. We've got some general labor in there, carpenters, bricks, and so forth. So it's really everything that I anticipate to be used on site. And this is user defined. You can create new resources. You can import resources from Excel. And obviously this resource list will get quite large for big projects. So it's quite important that you can organize this resource list in an effective manner. Okay, so we've got various tools to help you with that. The easiest way is just to filter for resources. So we've got a little filter tab on the side here that you can open up. And once again, just like our navigation bar, if you want to see what these icons mean, you can just open it up and you can see you've got filter, columns, and reports. And then there's various options to filter the data set. You can either just search for something, or you can filter by tag. So I haven't really discussed tags yet, but tags are essentially just labels that you can create and that you can stick on any data element in the system. So I've created a bunch of different tags, door materials, electrical materials, and so forth. And I've just attached them to my resources to help me find things easier. So if, for example, I want to just have a look at my plumbing materials, I can switch on my plumbing materials tag, and automatically you will see only the plumbing materials in your system. Right, I can just switch that off again. Okay, so we want to plaster the wall. So when we plaster the wall, we're going to be needing some labor. We'll probably be needing some general labor as well as a plasterer. So I'm just going to filter by attribute, which is another grouping mechanism that we can assign to resources to help you find things easier, but also for reporting, which we'll get to later. So now I'm just going to filter out all of my labor in the system. And here you can see that I've got general labor, bricklayer, and a carpenter. Okay, so I've already created the general laborer. It's costing us 220 Rand an hour. And I don't yet have a plasterer. So I'm going to create a plasterer now. And here you can edit all of the plasterer's properties. It's got a code, which is essentially an ID. So I'm just going to give it a code of, let's say, L5. And that's a plasterer. And let's say the plasterer is going to cost us 400 Rand per day. And I can assign a resource type of labor to my plasterer. You can add some tags if you want to. You can assign additional comments to that resource. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is. Alright, so there we've got our plasterer now as part of the resources. And just a note at this point, you obviously don't have to create all of your resources from scratch for every single project. All data in Lula build projects are reusable from one project to the next. So if you set up one big resource list here, you can import it into a new project and you can just update the rates and reuse your resources in the new project. So the idea isn't that you have to price every single project from scratch. You can build up these databases and library templates that you can reuse from one project to the next to help you price really quickly. Okay. So what else do we need for plastering the wall? We're going to need some materials. We'll need mortar, and mortar will consist of, some building sand, which we've got. Let's just see what else we need. We're going to need some cement. So we've got some cement. And let's see, building water, and that's what we need to mix the mortar. So we've got all of the materials and all of the labor necessary to price that item. So I'm going to switch back to the plastering item. And we can now start building up this item's net rate. Right, so on the right hand side, there's a insert tab, which opens up our full resource list. So we've got access to all of the resources that we've created, and we can search this list and pull in everything that's needed. So if I search for labor, I can automatically pull in the general labor that's needed, as well as the plasterer. So you can either click and then insert selected, or you can just double click and that automatically pulls in that resource into the worksheet. Okay, so you'll note that the plastering is priced per squares, but my general labor is priced per hour and my plasterer is priced per day. So the units of the resources don't match up to the unit of the parent item, so we actually need to transform the unit and the allowable to match the parent item. Okay, so we've got a transform column here where you can type in any sort of mathematics. So let's take that general labor from hours to days. So we can say, let's say we work 8 hours per day. Right, so that automatically takes that 20 multiplies by 8. You've got 160 Rand per day. So this is now the day rate of the general labor. And you can see here that I've used square brackets where I've added the unit conversion in there. That's essentially just a comment, so our equation compiler ignores everything that's in square brackets. So that's just for you, the estimator, to make a note of what that calculation actually means. It's also useful for your site agents. When they're on site, they can actually see what you meant by your calculations. Okay, so both of these items are now priced per day, and we now need to transform them from days to squares. Wait, before I do that, let's say we actually might have more than one general laborer on site. So let's say we've got 3 general laborers on site, and they're all working 8 hours a day, and we've just got 1 carpenter on site. All right, so now I'm going to assign a production rate to these items. They both will have the same production rate. Let's say they both work at 25 squares a day. Both are general laborers and our plasterers. So I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to apply a common factor of divided by 25 squares per day. That's our production rate, and that automatically divides those items by 25 squares a day. And now we can see that the general labor component is costing us 19 Rand and 20 cents per square, and the plastering component is costing us 16 Rand a square when we're plastering these walls. Right, so I can then insert some materials. So the materials that's needed is we're going to need mortar, but as mentioned, mortar is actually a combination of materials. Mortar is cement, building sand, and building water, and it's obviously mixed together in a specific ratio. And we probably use mortar in various places in the project. So we don't want to every single time have to pull in all 3 of those resources and specify the mixing ratio. We want to be able to specify it once and then just reuse that whole mortar unit wherever we need it. Okay, so to facilitate that, Lula Build provides a module called clusters. And clusters essentially allow you to build teams of resources, and you can also build teams within teams. So you can build plant unit teams, you can build material mixing teams, you can build labor teams, whatever you want to. So I've already created a mortar cluster for us. So I'm just going to open that up. And you can see, similar to the way in which you build a worksheet, you can specify resources via your insert tab, and you can specify transforms. So I've pulled in building sand, cement, and building water, add a little comment to say this is materials, and here I've specified the mixing ratio. I've allowed for some wastage and so forth, and we can see that mortar costs us 512 Rand per cubic meter. Okay, so if I go back to my plastering item, I can now use that mortar cluster by going insert, and then instead of inserting a resource, I want to insert a cluster. I'm going to open up insert clusters, and I'm just going to pull in the mortar cluster. Okay, so in my explorer on the left, I can expand it, and we can now see that plastering of the walls, it's got 2 laborers in there, and it's got mortar, and the mortar consists of building sand, cement, and building mortar. And if I want to jump into this cluster, I simply select that cluster, and automatically you can see the worksheet of that cluster, exactly what's been allowed for. So it gives you a really nice overview of exactly what's going on inside of your item. Right, so mortar is priced per cube, so I'm just going to transform that so that it's per square. So let's say we require 0.0025 cubes per square, and let's say we've got a wastage of 1.15 when we work with the mortar, in other words 15%. Okay, so the mortar is costing us R1.47 per square of plastering, and in total we can now see that plastering that wall item is going to cost us £36.67 per square. Okay, so if we go back to the bill of quantities, we've now priced that item, it's got a net rate assigned to it, and our full bill of quantities has been priced. And we can see cost to company, this job is going to cost us £264,000. Alright, important to note, up to date, everything that's been calculated is cost to company, so it's just net rates. We haven't assigned any selling rates to these items, so there's no markup on the bill of quantities yet. We've got various options to mark up a bill of quantities. You can assign a global markup, you can mark up groups of items by simply selecting them and marking them up. You can mark up according to type, so you can assign a certain markup to materials, a different markup to labor, and so forth, or even according to trades if you want to. So you can give masonry one type of markup, earthworks another markup, and so forth. So there's really numerous ways to mark up a bill of quantities, and you can access most of these options via your markup tab on the right hand side. We've got all of the options to assign a global markup, or markup according to attributes, or according to resource attributes, and so forth. But for the sake of the example, I'm just going to assign a global markup of, let's say, 8% to the whole project. I'm going to select the option apply markup. Yes, I'm sure. So that assigns a markup and automatically takes your net rates, adds 8%, and you've got a selling rate. And now we've got a bill selling amount of R285,000, which we're selling the project to the client to. Right. So if you now want to print this out, you obviously don't want the client to see your net rates or your net amounts. So we've got a default report set up, which you can access from your reporting tab, called the client bill. You can set up your own reports and fully customize this, but I've just set up a basic client bill here for the example, which automatically switches off all of the columns that you don't want the client to see, and you can now print this bill out by simply selecting print icon, and here you can give it a custom header, you can specify which file type, you can export it to Excel or to PDF or whatever you want to, and if you click download, it'll automatically download that report for you. Okay, but once you've priced this bill of quantities and you've gone through all of the effort to price it into so much detail, we can actually now start to give you really nice feedback on this fully priced bill of quantities. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into my resource attributes, and I'm going to have a look at my resource types. So resource types represent the larger groupings of resources which I've set up. It's once again 100% user defined, and they've been assigned to different resources. So our larger categories of resources in this project are fuel, labor, materials, plant, subby, and consumables. Okay, and once again, I've set up a report that I've called my resource type tender finalization report. If I switch that on, it's going to give me an indication of how much money I'm allowed to spend on each resource type in this project. So you can see that I've got an allowable of R312 on fuel. I'm allowed to spend R37,000 on labor in total. I'm allowed to spend R166,000 on labor, and so forth. All right, and this is the amount that I'm selling these types to the client to. Okay, so in other words, the way this should be interpreted is if at the end of the project you have spent more than R37,000 on labor, you've actually started to eat into your markup. If you spend more than R40,000 on labor, you've actually started to lose money on labor. All right, so it just gives you a nice overview of how the money is spread and what you should be aiming for throughout the project. All right, we can give you a similar report on our resources. So if you switch to resources, let's just clear the filters, and I open up my reports tab. I'm going to switch on my resource tender finalization report. And on resources, we can give you additional information. We can also give you the quantities. So here you can see that diesel, you're allowed to spend 25 liters of diesel in the project. You're allowed to spend R312 on that diesel, and you're selling that to the client for R337.50. Okay, so you can imagine that this is really handy when you're starting to talk to suppliers. So let's say we want to order some roofing materials, for example. So if we want to order roofing materials, I'm going to open up my filters and I'm going to switch on my tag filter called roofing materials. Automatically that's going to filter out all of my roofing material resources, and we can now see how much of each roofing item we need for this project. So we need to order 8 roof trusses, 357 wooden purlins, 570 roofing nails, and so forth. Right, so we can send this off to suppliers, and we can now tell them to provide us with a quote for these resources. But once again, you don't want your suppliers to see your net amounts, so we can switch those columns off by just opening up our columns tab. We don't want the supplier to see our effective allowable, and we don't want the client to see any of these. Sorry, we want them to see the quantity, but we don't want them to see any of our net amounts. So I'm just going to switch those net amounts off, and we only want the supplier to see the bill quantity. So we can then click print, and we're going to download this as a PDF. So I'm just going to show you what the report's going to look like. Okay, so there's the report's been printed or downloaded, and if I open it up, there's your report. So you've got your resources with the quantities. So it's exactly what you were seeing in front of you. So that's quite nice about Lula Build's reporting. It's what you see is what you get. So if you apply certain filters, you switch certain columns on and off, or switch certain reports on and off, and you click print, it's going to print exactly what you were seeing in front of you. So the reporting is really flexible. You can really customize it exactly according to what you want. Okay. So let's say we've sent this report off to the suppliers, and we've asked those suppliers to send us quotes back. Okay, so we can then adjudicate those quotes and compare the quotes in the system and apply the cheapest quote and use it in our estimate. So I've set up 2 suppliers. So just for the sake of an example, I've created 2 suppliers called Builders Warehouse and Buco. And I've set up a supplier adjudication, which is where we compare the quotes from suppliers. And I've set up an adjudication for roofing materials. All right, so if I open up roofing materials, I've pulled in all of my resources by using the plus resources button. So all of my roofing material resources. I've pulled in my 2 suppliers, Buco and Builders Warehouse, from the suppliers tab. And I've actually pulled in their rates as well via the import rates button. You can either import the supplier rates directly from Excel, or you've got the option to just punch them in manually if you want to as well. But I've pulled everything in and I've set it up. So Bucos told us that they can supply the roof trusses for 1,450 Rand, they can supply wooden purlins for 23 Rand, and so forth. And Builders Warehouse has given us a different set of rates. They can do the roof trusses for 1,480 Rand and the wooden purlins for 24 Rand, and so forth. All right. Then I can compare the totals of these suppliers. So if I open up the tab on the side, I can see that in total, Buco is costing us 57,000 Rand 660, and Builders Warehouse is costing us 57,781 Rand. So Buco is the cheapest. Just please note that these are obviously 100% fictional rates, so they're not actually supplied by Buco or Builders Warehouse. But we can then apply the rates from these suppliers by simply selecting the button Apply Adjudication. And here we've got various options. We can either apply the lowest quote of each supplier, so for each resource, or we can apply one quote from one supplier. So we can say, all right, I want to apply the supplier that's got the lowest total, and that is Buco. And it shows us that Buco is 60 Rand cheaper than the average rates in total for the quote. And if we apply it, it's going to actually take all of these rates supplied by Buco. It's going to pump them into the allowables of the resources, and automatically the full bill of quantities price will be updated accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to click the button Apply. And as mentioned, it's now taken these rates, it's pumped them into our resource list, and we can just switch on a different report here to actually view those roofing materials now. And we can see here we've now got the prices of Buco in there, and automatically the bill of quantities totals would have been adjusted. So if I just switch this back to the tender estimate view, we'll see that our full tender price has now been adjusted. Okay, so that's really convenient. It makes it really easy to work with suppliers and to quickly compare quotes and adjust your rates very easily. Okay, so that's sort of a very brief overview of the estimating side of things. There's obviously a lot of detail that I haven't gone into, but the idea of this video is just to sort of give you a broad stroke demonstration of what the system can do. Okay, so besides the tendering side, Lula Build is also very useful to use during the execution side of a project. So during project execution, you can use this cost estimate model of yours for various purposes. You can use it for project tracking. So if you want to capture progress against bill items, you can do that in Lula Build. We can then give you feedback on how much money you were allowed to spend on each of your different resources or resource types, and so forth. You can also do forecasting. So you can create additional columns, fill in some forecasted quantities, and run reports against those forecasted measurements to see where you're going to be standing into the future or what resource requirements you need going forward. So Lula Build is completely customizable when it comes to project tracking. So you can define your own measurement columns and you can run reports against any of those columns. So I've set up a bunch of different measurement columns. You'll see there's different timelines that they've been organized into. Tendering timeline, I've got my forecast timeline, I've got progress timelines, and so forth. So you can really customize this completely. I've set up a bunch of project tracking columns for us already, and I'm just going to switch those on via a reporting tab. So in our reporting tab, I'm first just going to switch over to my progress tracking view that I've created. So in progress tracking, I've set up two sort of dimensions which we can track, our actual progress and our claimed progress. So this is a cumulative running total of where we are with each bill item. The actual progress is what we've actually done on site, and you can switch on the table edit there at the bottom, and then you can actually edit your progress, capture your progress. So your site agents can daily or monthly or weekly or however often they want to, they can capture their progress against bill items. So in this example, I've said that I've done 3 cubes of the foundation, I've done backfilled 10 cubes of it, I've installed 12 meters worth of damp cores, done 8 meters of wall-to-wall plate, and so forth. And then I've overclaimed, so I've created a column for myself to capture overclaimed or unreclaimed quantities. So I can say that according to the client, I've done 5 cubes of the foundation and I've backfilled 12 cubes of the wall to plate, and so forth. So it really gives you flexibility to track different sorts of dimensions, and as mentioned, totally user defined. You can create your own columns and set this thing up in any which way you want to track the project as accurately as possible. All right, and besides tracking progress, I've also set up a forecast measurements for us. So I want to forecast where this project is going to stand at the financial year end for 2019, for example. So I've set up columns and measurement columns to track that. And I've set up, once again, 2 columns. I've set up a column forecast actual financial year end 2019 and forecast claimed. So in other words, where am I going to stand at the end of the financial year for 2019? So I've estimated that I'm going to be completed with 6 cubes of a foundation, 20 cubes will have been backfilled by then, and so forth. And this is what I'm estimating that I'm going to be claiming by the end of the year. All right, so once again, I can differentiate between what I've actually done and what I've claimed I've done to the client. Okay, so once I've set up this sort of tracking and captured some progress and captured some forecasting, I can start running reports against these measurements that I've set up. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to my resource types. And once again, I can now open up a report that I've set up for myself. Let's say I want to track my progress on my resource types, I can switch on my resource type progress analysis. And here I can see up to date in this project, I should not have spent more than 156 Rand on fuel. I should not have spent more than 2,200 Rand on labor, and I should not have spent more than 26,000 Rand on materials. All right, and this is how much I've sold it to the client for, so that gives you an indication of where your cash flow should be sitting. All right, so this is really nice. You can start comparing this to your financials. So if your books are telling you at this point in time, but hey, you've already spent 35,000 Rand on materials, then obviously something is going wrong on materials. So we can then drill down further into the resources themselves, here are the filters, and we are now interested in materials because we've said that there's a cost overrun on materials. So I'm going to switch on my material filter. And I'm going to switch on, sorry, I should have first switched on that report. So let's just first switch on the report. We're interested in the progress analysis. And we're interested in materials. Okay. Okay, so here we can see how much of each resource we should have used up to date, how much money we should have spent up to date, and how much money we should have gotten in for that resource. Okay, so bricks, we should not have bought more than 462 bricks up to date, and we should not have spent more than 924 Rand on those bricks. And we can see this in detail for each of our resources. Here you can see we've got a bunch of resources which we should not have spent any money on. And we can then once again export this to Excel. You can compare this to your actual costs coming from your finances so that you've got this allowable versus cost view on this extremely detailed resource level to very easily pick up exactly where things are going wrong. So if at this point you notice that you've already purchased 10,000 Rands worth of ready-mix concrete, but you should only have spent 3.6 cubes up to date, then you can see that there's a overrun on ready-mix concrete. So that could be a result of wastage. Maybe you're wasting more than you should be wasting. Or it could just be a result of material on site. Maybe you haven't used all of it, or maybe someone's stealing from the site. So there could be various reasons for why you're having a cost overrun, but the system will help you pick up those cost overruns really quickly, and it'll help you with the forensic analysis to try and figure out why and where things are really going wrong. All right, so it's really powerful from that point of view in terms of what you can do on a detailed resource level. And then obviously you can do the same for forecasting. So we've set up the forecasting measurement columns so we can run reports against those columns. So once again, if I switch back to my resource types, I've set up a report for myself, resource type forecast financial year end. Okay, and here we can see that this is the forecast for where we're going to be standing at the end of the financial year. So at the end of the financial year, we should not have spent more than 312 Rand on fuel or 14,000 Rand on labor and so forth. And this is the remainder quantity, which I've set up as a calculated column, being the financial year end quantity minus the progress to date. So from now onwards, we're still allowed to spend 12,000 Rand on labor, 44,000 Rand on material, 1,100 Rand on labor, on plant, and 1,085 Rand on our subbies. Okay, we can run that same report on resources. In the resources scene, I'm going to now switch on my forecast report. And once again, we can see how much of each resource we're going to have used by the end of the year, how much money we should have spent on each of those resources, and from now onwards, how much we're still allowed to procure and how much money we're still allowed to spend on it. So we can see here that we can still buy 10,000 bricks till the end of the year, and we're still allowed to spend 21,000 Rand on those bricks. All right. So that gives you a lot of power, and it really gives you a lot of control. And as mentioned, all of these aspects, everything that I've set up here is all user defined. So you can define your own tracking dimensions against which you want to track, and you can really customize the whole system to get the information out of it that you want to. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's essentially what our system does. It's a detailed cost estimation system where you can set up a detailed cost model, where you build all of your rates up from first principles. It gives you great accuracy doing that. It also gives you really nice transparency. And then you can track and forecast um, your progress during the uh, project execution phase and run these reports to understand exactly how much money you're allowed to spend on each individual resource, which you can then export out and compare to your financials to quickly pick up where you've got cost overruns and to stop them before they become an issue. Right. So as mentioned, this was a very brief overview. There's obviously a lot of detail that I'm not showing you, but I think this should give you a good idea of what the capabilities of the system are and what it makes possible. So go and sign up. It's free to get started with the system. If you want to start playing around with it, go to lulabuild.com, create a free account, and start playing around and get in touch, and we'd be happy to help.